Alright everybody, welcome back. Let's go ahead and actually get into doing something. Just kind of get your feet wet. So as we saw in this one over here, when you played, you had the heads-up display that shows the health, the mana, the stamina, and you might be thinking, okay, how do we do that? And pretty much if you've got any kind of game where you've got a character running around, you're probably going to want some kind of stats up on the screen, either showing, where they're at or how much health they've got or anything like that. I mean, unless it's, a game where they don't have health, or if literally they either are alive or dead, in which case, health wouldn't really matter. But you're going to probably want some sort of indicator on the screen. So how do we do that? Well, before we can actually do that, first we have to actually give the character health. So what we're going to do is we'll go into the blueprints for this third-person character here. And what we want to go ahead and do is add a variable for their health. So let's click on plus variable over here. And we're going to name it health. And the type of variable that we want to do is, it is now called a real in here. It is used to have a float, and then they also had a double, which is a different type of float. But basically, a real number is a number that has a decimal point. So instead of being a round number, which is what an integer would be, which would be literally negative, could be a negative number, could be a positive number, whatever. And a real number can be that also, but it can also have a decimal. And the reason why we're doing that is because that way, to represent it, we can have it as a percentage. So we're going to go ahead and mark that as real. And when you do, you'll see over here, default value, please compile the blueprint. So let's go ahead and compile. And one thing I want to point out is over here next to variable type is a drop down for that, and there's different types of variable types. And single is what we're looking for right now because we're going to keep this simple. We'll go into the other types later on because they all have different uses, although I've honestly never really used set very much, but whatever. You can put a description if you want. We could put a default value in there, but so for health, if we're looking for health, we're probably going to want to have a max health and a current health. So let's go ahead and change this to current health. So go ahead and move over here, and now what we can do so for max health, we're going to basically want it to be the exact same. So we can right click and do duplicate or do Control D. It actually is Control W in the other versions, I believe, but now it's Control D. So do that. And it'll name it, current health 0, so let's rename it to max health. So let's just say that, alright, so compile, let's go ahead and save. So max health, let's say the default value is 100. And let's just say for current health, because they're, starting off, they're at 100. So let's go ahead and compile and save, and now, okay, we're still not going to display anything because even though it has that variable, we have nothing saying to display it, so go ahead and stop that. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to create a widget. And what a widget is basically, if you can see it, if it's, alright, so let's just go in here. So essentially, if it's anything that isn't what's on screen right now, if it's anything that pops up on the screen, if it's anything that you can see on the screen other than items that are actually in the world, it's probably a widget. So what we're going to go ahead and do is, let's just go ahead and let's create a new folder, and we'll just call it widgets. And we're going to go into that widgets folder, and we're going to do a right click, and we're going to go user interface, which it hopefully makes sense as to why it's under user interface, because it's how the user is interfacing with it. So we want to go ahead and do widget blueprint, and that's different, I think. But anyway, let's just go into user widget. So we're just going to name this W for widget underscore HUD. Let's go ahead and open that up, and you get a designer here. And this is kind of like your, viewport over here. It's the, visual representation, and then you've got the graph, which is same as your, event graph more or less, which is the code in the background. So let's go ahead and go back to designer. And what we want to go ahead and do is what we're going to look for is a progress bar. Bring that over, and that is really big. So okay, Now I think I remember why. Oh, it's what we want to do is let's get rid of that first. So the first thing we want to do is we actually want to, essentially set this thing to, I'm going to double check some of my stuff over here, how big it is, and make sure that everything kind of remains the same scale if the screen size adjusts and all that stuff. So what we want to do is go to here, and we're going to first, now I remember. Normally these things actually, so differences between the previous versions. So first thing we want to do is actually add a canvas panel. We're going to drag that out here. And this essentially is our canvas. So that's where we're going to put everything. So what we want to do is we want to right click on that and we want to wrap it, as in add something above it. And we're going to wrap it with a scale box. And make sure, and wrap it with a size box. And then what we want to do is go to size box, and we want to do a width and height override. And this somebody showed in another video and it made sense, so I keep it that way. Width, it's basically you're going for a 16 by 9 resolution, so 1920 by 1080. So this way, essentially, if you're within that, it's going to show up and adjust to be within their screen. Again, it's one of those things somebody showed, made sense when they described it, so I figured why not do it. So anyway, now this is essentially our player's screen. So what we can do, just to put a very quick idea of what's going on, so what we want to do is let's just put a text over here before we get into anything else. In this text block, we're going to say, this is the HUD. So let's just compile that and let's save that. And it still won't do anything on here because we're not telling it to do anything basically. So what we want to do is we want to go to our third person character, and we want to, I don't think there is one in here, so what we want to do is we want to go right click and just type begin and go event begin play. And what we want to do is we have this widget that we have here, but it doesn't exist in the game, right? All right, I'm going to save everything real quick because I'm paranoid. So what we want to do is, after this, what we want to do is we want to create widget and class widget HUD. And what we want to do is add to, so there's add to viewport and there's add to screen. Viewport will fill up the entire screen unless there's specific things set. Add to player screen is different in that it will basically, if you've got say a split screen, it should only show up on one player's screen. So depending on what type of game you're making, you can adjust that. Actually, I've never tried player screen, so let's go and just try that. So let's just go ahead and compile, save. Let's go ahead and play. And you can see it's placed up there, those words we wrote. This is the HUD. And that's just going to be up there. It's essentially on the player's screen. There's if you, depending on the game, your mouse may be able to be moving around and click on that, whether you're able to do it or not. You may have it so you can only move the mouse or see the mouse, move the mouse around when you're in a menu, that type of thing. And those are different types of HUD interactions, and we'll get into those later. But let's get into showing the health. So let's go and escape out of there. Let's go back into our HUD, and we're just going to go ahead and delete that. And now we're going to add in this progress bar. And you can see it's gray because it's not filled in, and you can adjust the percent to test what it looks like right there. And you can come down here, you can adjust the color on it, do whatever you want to. You can adjust the alpha, which is basically the opacity of it, so how much you can see through it. And you can see you've got the gray background on it right there, and that can also be adjusted, which is trying to remember where it's at. It's probably hidden behind my capture bar there or something, but let's see here. So you can also basically actually put in images that are in the background, images that you fill with. Some of these things you can see right there, that's adjusting the color in the background right there. So you could have it be that Yeah, it could be blue in the background or red as it fills, or again, you could literally put an image in there. Like let's say we wanted to, literally I can just pick this random image right there that isn't showing up there because if I had a good image, it would probably be a lot easier to show this, but yeah, it's not going to work right probably. Yeah, none of those are good for any of this, so sorry, that's just, is what it is. But you can adjust, the shape, you can make it like that. Draw it is, I'm not sure what that is, or haven't actually done it like that, but anyway, there's a border, which really doesn't look good, but yeah, let's go rounded box on that. So, just go ahead and compile, save, and now it'll be up there, but that's just a bar that doesn't actually, indicate anything. So let's go and escape out of that. And also, as we saw, that fill bar didn't really look good either. So why don't we go ahead and see if we can adjust that. I don't remember where to adjust that at, but worry about that later. Again, there's things where I haven't run into them, so I haven't really worried about it. So if we switch that back to box, it'll look pretty either way. And there's 1,000 different ways you can cover that up also, but we'll worry about that later. So what we want to do here is, so for percentage, we want to actually create a binding. So before we do that, actually I want to show you guys some other stuff first. So there's a couple different ways you can actually do this. So we will potentially create a binding because you do that for more in-depth things, but before we do that, I'll show you the simple way here. So what we're going to do is we want to go into our graph, and what we want to do is on event construct, which is basically when it gets created. So when it does that begin over here in create HUD widget, that's what's happening when it's doing the construct. So we can get rid of these other two, and we'll explain what those are later. What we want to do is we want to get our player character. And now what we want to do is we want to do what's called a cast. And we want to cast to that BP third person character, which is this blueprint up here. And what this is doing is this is taking our player character and it's plugging it into that blueprint up there, and it's saying, hey, is this compatible? And it's saying, okay, if it is, then we're going to do this. And it's saying if it fails, then we'll do this. And, there's reasons why you'd want to do it if it failed. So we'll worry about that later. But so what we know is we want to go here and we want to, as that blueprint up there, we want to get. There we go. Get current health. And actually, wait. I did this kind of backwards, so. There's a reason why I shouldn't be filming these things at 10:30 at night. We're going to do some of this, the same stuff we did here, and we are actually going to go back into the binding because I'm an idiot sometimes. So I'm trying to combine different ideas here, and it's not going well because it's 10:30 at night. But anyway, let's do binding, create binding, and we're going to do very similar to what we did before. So let's go ahead and get player character. And we're going to go ahead and do this cast to BP third person character. And let's go ahead and plug that into there. And we're going to go ahead and get current health. And we're going to get max health. And now we're going to math. And that sounds scary, but literally we're going to drag off of current health. And we're going to hit the divide, slash, and that's going to bring up divide, and that's going to divide, and that gives us a percentage, which is going to go into there. And now we're going to pull that up to there. So now, when it pops up, it will be completely full. So let's go ahead and you're thinking, okay, how can we test this to see that, okay, if his health goes down, it's going to, go down. So what we're going to do is learn something else real quick. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our event begin play. And what we're going to do is we're going to right click, and we're just going to let's use the 9. and you'll see keyboard events 9, and you can create bindings for all kinds of stuff. This literally is just for testing purposes to give you a quick idea, and we'll go over key bindings well, probably in the next video actually, so it gives me something else to talk about. But anyway, let's just do 9, and what this means is literally when 9 is either pressed or released, it's going to do something. So what we want to do is take our current health, and we can grab this over here, and we want to get it. That's another way you can get these. And we want to subtract, so minus. Let's just say 5. And then after we do that, we want to set current health to that new amount, so set. So every time we press the 9 key, so when 9 is pressed, we're going to set our current health, and we're going to set it to what our current health was, minus 5. So let's go ahead and go here. I'm going to click play. We're going to hit 9, 9, 9. Oh, wait, why is it? Because I'm not actually in there yet. So see, health is going down. And nothing happens when it goes below that because we don't have anything set to happen, but you can actually, oh, what the, yeah, but you can, it'll actually go into a negative value, and the way you can tell that is if you come over here and find the blueprint, wherever it actually is, there we go, third person character, and we come down here into the details about it. Actually, we can't because I didn't make it visible, so let me show you something real quick. So if you want to be able to see information about variables as they're actually happening, you've got this eyeball over here. So you click on that, open it up, and now when you actually go into the game, so let me just hit 9 real quick to drop that down. Don't hit escape to get out of it. If you just hit like Alt-Tab and then get into it, there's probably easier ways. I'm just not thinking straight. And then you click on them over here, and what you can do to make it go a bit faster sometimes is you can actually pause the simulation if it's laggy, just because it's trying to render everything. But this actually seems a lot smoother than it was in the preview edition, so I'm actually kind of stoked on that. But anyway, so you can see right here default current health and max health. So we're at 65 because that's what we dropped it to, so let's go ahead and, oh, come on. I love it when I hit the wrong button. Let's go ahead and resume editor. Do that, we're going to hit 9, see it's dropping, and he is super dead. So that is basically how you make a health bar, how you kind of add a variable in there to have health, how you potentially show the character losing health, how you get that heads up display to show up on there. And again, everything is just one little step in building on it. For the heads up display, we can see inside of this one right here, we've got the mini map, we've got a hotkey bar down at the bottom. The mini map actually has, again, that map is basically, because it doesn't update, it's for the other one, the other level, but the mini map can have icons on it. You can have all kinds of information pop up on there, such as when you collect items, what they were, when the character levels up, all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, it's, the world is your oyster. It's all about what you want to do with it. And also, just one thing I wanted to kind of show was this is kind of that landscape that I built. I didn't really get a chance to show all of it off. Like, it requires a lot more work, but it's just a general idea showing just how a few things work together. And as you get closer, the textures smooth out, and so that way it tends to kind of look a bit more even from both distance and up close. Then you've got roads and stuff, and those are all things that I can show how to. I'll eventually show how to do in terms of mixing textures. And you've got it so the walls of the mountains are different texture than the tops of the mountains with the snow, and you've got rivers and lakes and all kinds of nifty stuff. And then when I was showing some of the foliage stuff, like here's an example of plants that use foliage. So yeah, just kind of wanted to show some of that stuff also. But yeah, so that's it for now, I think, and we'll go over. I already forgot what I was going to. Oh yeah, key bindings. So we'll go over that next time, I think.